The Wind is My Mother, Bare Heart, Molly Larkin, Chapter 8, Walking in Balance. This is a society where we like to get dependent on professionals. If something goes wrong with you, you go see the doctor. I'm not trying to take food out the doctor's mouth, but there is much you can do on your own. As much as you can think yourself sick, you can turn it around and think yourself well. We haven't explored even 1/8 of the mind's potential. We'd rather pay out good money so we can be told by a professional, this is what's wrong with you. We feel good about it, except for the money we pay. Still, you haven't really been cured. Internal problems cannot usually be handled by external means. The cure was already within you, but we've never been taught that we can handle most of our own problems. People often ask for my advice and counseling, but overall, the best advice I can give to anyone at any time is never complete a negative statement. You might start out thinking it, but don't complete it, because you're about to enter it into the computer up in your head, and it could come true. Your subconscious responds to whatever you put into your conscious awareness. When you put information into a computer, it responds to that information and you see it on a screen. Similarly, there is a crew of workers within you, sub-personalities or whatever you want to call them, who are going to see to it that whatever you put in your conscious awareness comes out that way. So if you put in something negative, it's going to come out negative. When a captain on a boat gives a command, the crew below doesn't argue with the captain. No, I think you ought to go this way or that way or at the speed. They don't say it's right, wrong, moral, immoral. They just respond to what they're told. What you feed your subconscious can transfer not only into your attitude and your thinking, but your body, in time, will feel the brunt of it, particularly if it's heavy-duty stuff. We attract. The situation that you're most afraid of, you're going to attract. Some fear is healthy because it makes you cautious, but when you're overly afraid of something, you're going to attract that very thing. When people come to me with various problems, I have to determine if that problem is psychosomatic or if there is some part of the physical body that is in need of help. There was a clinical psychologist who worked in the Indian hospital in Shawnee, Oklahoma, who had made one of the tribesmen angry at him. I don't know what he did, I didn't ask, but the tribesmen told him, we have ways of dealing with people like you. I'm going to get you. A few days later, the psychologist's leg drew up and he couldn't straighten it out. He was sent to St. Anthony Hospital in Oklahoma City and was placed in the psychiatric ward because the physicians could find no physical cause for the problem. My nephew was the head of the Tri-State U.S. Indian Health Service in Oklahoma City at that time, so he called me and said, we have a doctor in here, psychologist from Shawnee. Would you help him? I went over to see the psychologist, and he told me about what this Indian said he could do to him. I know that the Indian had just threatened the psychologist and never actually did anything, because when I examined him, there was nothing planted inside his leg. The doctor actually did it to himself unconsciously. I told him, as a psychologist, you know good and well what took place. He planted a seed in your mind. We can do things to you. That seed germinated into reality. You know about transference, when the mental changes into the physical, and this is the case here. Whether you owe up to it or not, you were scared, and the result, your leg drew up. I'm going to undo it with 4 songs. Then I'm going to blow my eagle bone and whistle 4 times in 4 directions, and then I'll fan you off with this eagle feather. After the first song, you'll start moving your leg. With the second song, you'll be able to begin to stretch out. And by the time I finish the 4th song, your leg will be straight. Then I'm going to give thanks with this whistle to the great being who really helped. And so that's what happened. I started singing, and even before that first song was over, he was already moving his leg. By the third song, it was straight. With the fourth song, all the tingling had finally left, and he felt all right. Then I fanned him with my eagle feather. Afterwards, I told him, "Don't tell the doctors what I did. Let them try to figure out what they did right." When you plant a seed, it attracts everything necessary for its germination. It gets nutrients and moisture from the soil. The hard coating of the seed becomes soft and eventually falls off. The shoots go deeper into the ground, and in time, a stem grows upward, and it emerges through the topsoil and begins to absorb sunlight. The seed has attracted all it needs for its growth. Planting an idea in your conscious awareness is like planting a seed. The subconscious responds by attracting all the things necessary to bring that idea, whether positive or negative, into fulfillment. I did some counseling at a place in Houston for AIDS patients called the Omega Center. The very first thing I did was to tell them to change that name to something else. Omega is the last letter of the Greek alphabet. It implies that this is the end. Change it to something else. The power of thought. We still have a lot to learn about the mind. I'm not talking about the brain. I'm talking about the mind. There was a soldier who lost his leg during the Korean War. His leg was amputated at a mobile surgical unit, and they had to bury it because of the fighting going on around him. After he was back in base hospital, he kept complaining that the ants were crawling all over his leg. The doctors told him about the false pain and all that, but he persisted. "Ants are crawling on my leg." To placate him, a detachment unit was sent to dig up the leg, and when they did, ants were crawling all over it. The leg was several miles away, the body here. Where is the mind-body connection severed? These are things we don't know yet. But just as the body can communicate to the mind, so can the mind affect the body. People often wonder why they have so many aches and pains or so many difficult circumstances surrounding them. We create them, but by the very same token, we can take care of them with our minds. Thoughts affect the body and some of the senses within the body. For instance, suppose you get hungry, make a sandwich and take it outside so you can take in the sun on a windy day. You forget to bring something to drink, so you leave the sandwich on the chair and dash back into the house to get a drink and hurry back out. You're so hungry that you sit down and bite into the sandwich and begin to chew. In the time that you were gone, sand had blown on the sandwich and you find yourself grinding the sand between your teeth. You see, just thinking about it gives you a shivery reaction in your body. Thinking affects the body. It's so important how to think and what you think about. Suppose you had a falling out with someone you perceive as obnoxious in every way. This person sees nothing good in anybody. Finally, that nothing good was directed at you and you took offense. You find it very hard to forgive that person, and thinking about him brings up your stored anger. Now imagine another person who did something really nice for you. Not to get something out of you, just to make you feel good. A great deal of respect was shown by the attention and love that person, and you love that person dearly. So here's my example. You experience anger when you think of this obnoxious person, and then you turn right around and feel love when you think of somebody else. You did not change your emotions, you just changed your thoughts, and your emotions followed. So thinking does affect our emotions as well as our bodies. That's why it's best to know what you're putting into your conscious awareness, because all of it is energy and vibrations. There are many, many levels of vibrations in and around us. You can go out to nature, away from the busy workday world, where you think the night is really calm and still, but there's a lot of activity taking place on different levels. Night may be still, but it doesn't mean everything has stopped. In the same way, your mind never stops. You can only slow it down sometimes. A good night's sleep. If you've had a very exciting day, when you go to bed, your body is tired and You may go right to sleep, but your mind picks up more speed. If you studied rapid eye movement, you know there would be a lot of activity in your eyes. Why do you wake up tired some mornings and other mornings you feel rested even though you slept the same amount of time? You wake up tired because your mind was accelerated all night long, dealing with all kinds of dreams, flashing back and forth, trying to tell you something. In the morning, you make yourself get up, but you drag around all day, even at work, where you know your job inside and out. You just can't hit it with full force. So how do you take care of these inner issues? As you're about to go to sleep, relax your body. It does not matter whether you begin at the top of your head and work down to the bottom of your feet, or start from the bottom of your feet and go all the way up to the top of your head. Just relax every muscle along the way, and as you do that, take deep, slow breaths. Breathe in soothing, calming thoughts, like a soft wind blowing in, caressing and lulling you into a deep, restful sleep. Then imagine, as you breathe out, that you're releasing all the tensions and stress from your daily tasks. Release them out into the atmosphere and put all the finished business on hold for the time being. It will still be around tomorrow. You can tackle it then. But for now, put everything on hold and take care of your body. Allow it a good rest. This way you relax not only your body, but also the thoughts and feelings that go on within you. And as you lie there, be grateful for the day you've had and ask for a good, peaceful rest. Put that into your conscious awareness, and when you drift off, you'll go into a deep sleep and you'll feel energized the next morning. You might even see your problems from a different viewpoint. What you thought you couldn't see the end of will become a little light at the end of a tunnel, and you can go on from there. You really can handle these things yourself. We have tapped very little of our mind's power, a very small portion. Not because we have such a little mind, but because we don't rely upon and utilize it enough. The mind has the power to do anything. It's better than any wonder drug that has been developed for any reason today. Laughter is the best medicine. One of the most notable attributes of my tribe is their sense of humor. There are great people who always find something to laugh about in spite of difficulties in their own lives. We're taught early in life to laugh at ourselves and with others. We don't poke fun at other people. We poke fun at the situation where we can all laugh together. At our funeral meetings, before the service, you'll often see some group laughing because there's something as said funny. But when it comes time to be serious, they're there in all sincerity, respect, and honor for the deceased and the mourners. They find a balance between tears and laughter. When someone tells me a sad story, I'm really touched. I go along with it for a while. Then I change to something that is a little lighter. I try to keep myself in balance all the time. There are people who don't know how to laugh. They're doing serious work all the time. And then they don't know why they feel so run down. It's because they've been operating on just one level. There's no balance. You never see them smile. They worry 5 days ahead. They worry about today, tomorrow, and the next day. That's how far in debt they are to their own worrying process. It's one thing to be concerned and find ways to do something about a problem, but worrying is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do. You can rock and rock and rock, but it doesn't get you anywhere. Some people read heavy books, one after another. It's really an imbalance. I can read plain old westerns, then I'm ready to read something like Carl Jung's God's Answer to Job, and I can just drink it all in. Then I leave that for a while and I'll get back to a lighter topic. I sometimes read the comics because they often tell a story truthfully and directly. I sometimes draw my own cartoon of something I'm thinking about, then I throw it away. It served its purpose. It's relieved my mind, and then I can go on to more serious things. In the most somber situation, you can almost expect something to turn around. If we don't balance it out on our own, a situation often arises which forces us to. I knew a Ponca woman whose husband passed away. In the Ponca way, the deceased is buried on the 4th day, but up until then, stay up all night and talk. They take a short break at midnight for refreshments. Then they convene again and go until morning. It happened that one of the preachers from a nearby church got through talking just before midnight and was on his way to sit down. Being elderly, he was taking his time. It was the widow's turn to speak, and as she was thanking the people for coming, the preacher finally sat down, leaned back in his chair on the slick floor, and kept going backwards until he fell under the casket. The other speakers got up and pulled him out. The widow kept a straight face until she couldn't hold it any longer, and she just burst out laughing, and everyone laughed with her. She said, "You know my husband who's lying here would really appreciate that. He was that kind of fellow, jovial. He liked to make people laugh. That was the great thing. She turned it around into something good." 2 parts to a whole. There are usually 2 parts to a complete whole. Day and night are parts of the complete whole called time. Guilt and non-guilt are both parts of the complete whole we call judgment. Just go on down the line. There are 2 sides to most every situation in life. Try to balance them out. Eastern philosophy talks about all people having yin energies as well as yang energies. Whether you're a man or a woman, we each have some of the opposite energy within us. Water is thought of as yin, but when frozen, it becomes yang, and yet it started out as water. The transformation is subtle, no great dramatic thing, yet it's there. Most medicine people don't often ask about this, but a medicine woman needs male energy and a medicine man needs female energy around them, especially when they're making medicine. It makes that medicine strong. Among the Navajo, when a man attends an event or council where an opinion must be formed, he is accompanied by his wife or eldest daughter. They say that because men and women see things differently, a balanced opinion can only be formed by a man and woman together. When a Navajo medicine man performs a blessing ceremony, there is a certain part of the ceremony when a woman related to him must repeat the prayers right after him. Female and male energy connect to make that prayer strong. This applies to almost all medicine. We don't often bring these things out and talk about them, but they're here. Working with opposites can also bring your physical body back into balance. Sometimes you come home from school or work tense and stressed out. The easiest way to relax yourself is to put the left hand at the base of your spine and the right hand in the curve where your head and neck meet. Just hold them there and you'll begin to feel relaxed. Placing your hands that way connects the positive and negative poles of the nervous system, and the energy flowing back and forth balances the body and calms you down. If you sit a while like that, sometimes you find you can almost put yourself to sleep. That's a simple way to help yourself relax. You can even do it at work, but don't reverse your hands. If you put the left up top and the right at the bottom, it works the opposite way. It makes you irritable. You can be most effective if you're balanced. People who write me often end up with a New Age saying, walk in balance. But do they know how to walk in balance? If your brain's too focused on one side, you may be walking around at an angle yourself. By opening both sides of the brain, then you can walk in balance. You may have heard about the left and right hemispheres of the brain. The left side is logical, and there's nothing wrong with logic. The right side has a connection with the ethereal, the spiritual aspects of life. And the two sides of the brain must be kept in balance for you to lead a balanced life. All through school, from kindergarten on up through your PhD, you were taught to function from the left side. You had to be writing all the time, making reports, writing your thesis. You had to refer to someone with a degree who had already written about it so you could quote them to let people know that you were well-read and did quite a bit of research. You used logic all the way through school because the teachers wouldn't quite accept the spirit told me to answer this way. If you went to the ethereal side of your nature, they'd throw you out of class because you weren't quite right in their opinion. So we never got a chance to use this spiritual side very much. My people didn't talk about the left and right sides of the brain. We didn't even say brain, we just said there's little people inside us. There's one side that's always figuring things out and has to have answers. The other side has more faith, trust, and belief. Native people learned to connect with their ethereal side early in our history. We learned not through scientific laboratory experimentation, but through what we sensed around us, through being encouraged to trust our instincts. Sensing things was our salvation. We relied on those senses. A warrior might sense something behind him, look around, and sure enough, something was there. Everyone still has those senses. They're not as finely tuned as they were in the past, but they can be. Relying on your senses can be your salvation in your business, your life, and your work. The first thing you feel like doing comes from your instinct, your right brain. But then a flood of logic comes in from the left brain. If you let your logic ruin your first instinct, you may pay the consequences. Suppose you're going out and you start to take your jacket. It's right there at the door and you're reaching for it with one hand and you open the door with the other. When you open that door, the day is sunny and clear and you tell yourself, I won't need this jacket. You leave without it. Then during the day, the weather changes, it gets cold. When you left, your instinct, your inner sense told you, take the jacket. But your logical side, seeing the sunshine, said, I won't need it. So it's often better to go along with those first instincts and try not to analyze too much. If you practice using your instincts with small things, such as whether you need your jacket, you will eventually be able to rely on them for the big decisions in life. I mentioned earlier how our elders take young people to a tree in the woods blindfolded and bring them back and take off the blindfold and ask them to find their tree. On other occasions, before taking a group of boys out in the forest, our elders would tell them, this is our meeting place. Before you venture out, love this place. Put your heart into it. Then they'd blindfold them. But this time, when they reached the woods, the blindfold was not taken off. Find your way back to that meeting place. They would have a stick to use in front of them because they were like blind people. The only way they could find their way back was by experiencing the love they felt before they went out. As you arrive somewhere, see if it feels right in your heart. If it doesn't, then change direction. Keep following what feels good to your heart until you find that place again. You know that you've arrived at the right place when you feel that love that you had before you left. Life has many directions. It's up to each person to choose which direction to go in. Freedom to choose is a great gift. It might lead you to a blind spot, a place where there seems to be no opening, but if you keep trying, a pattern forms and you can always learn to follow your heart. Notice the pattern. Notice how your mind works in conjunction with how your heart feels at certain stages in life, and use that as a guideline. Your life may sometimes seem like a maze, but there is a way out. It's about choices. This is truly a case of trial and error, finding a way out of the maze. Living one day at a time. Once I was giving a group of U.S. Forestry Service employees a tour of our Indian hospital in Oklahoma. There was a higher echelon in the Forestry Service, and the group included professors and scientists. One of the professors was looking at an old Indian sitting in the waiting room and said to me, "Will you ask this old man if he's sick?" I didn't know the man, but I knew he was old because when I asked him his age, he said he was in his 90s. I asked him in Creek if he was sick. He just smiled and said, "No, I'm not sick. I just look this way." Ask him what is his biggest physical problem in his old age. Again, I asked the question in Creek. With a smile, he replied, "I can't answer that because I don't consider myself old. But when I get old and find out, I'll let him know." Today, people, especially non-Indian groups, are age conscious. They're also time conscious because time is money. When people ask me, "What time are we starting the workshop?" I always say something like 8:17, kind of like an Amtrak time. It's human to try to impose time on situations. When the leaves fall early and seemingly before their time in nature, who's to say it's before their time? We even try to impose daylight savings time on birds, but it doesn't work. When it's time for them to molt in their season, they molt. When it's time to change color, they do that in their own time, not when we say. We often hear people say, "I ran out of time," or "I don't know where time goes anymore." Here it's already noon and I haven't done all that I was supposed to do. They don't stop to think that we have the same amount of time every day. It's how we use the time that's important. But people don't accept that. They're looking for something or someone to blame, and they just didn't manage their time well. They didn't make a plan and follow it. Maybe they made a plan, just haphazardly worked at it, and left a lot of tasks undone and tried to blame it on time. Or perhaps they tried to pack too much in. We all have 24 hours in a day, whether it's daylight savings time or not. So it's best to look at how we manage the time we have in order to accomplish our goals. When people have some unpleasant tasks ahead, they usually choose the easiest ones first. Why not tackle the hardest ones? Get them out of the way, and then you'll enjoy the easier ones because you're more confident. When you get the big obstacles out of the way, your day will run smoothly, and you can go back home happy. The reason that I'm over 75 years old and still going strong is due to the fact that one of the first lessons we were taught was to live one day at a time. We didn't think of terms of years or birthdays. Live life as though you might die tomorrow. Do what you would like to be doing and do your best each day. If you want to be lazy, be good and lazy that day. But if you want to be industrious that day. In our true Indian way, we slept when we got sleepy. We got up when we were ready, and we ate when we got hungry. There were no set times. Today, you've got to get to work early, so you gulp something down real fast and go. That gulping doesn't help you. It might have filled you up physically, but it didn't help you because your mind and your gulping didn't go hand in hand. Do you ever go to a coffee shop in the morning? Maybe you saw something on the late evening news the night before, but you didn't get all the details. So you're reading the paper and you're gulping down coffee and a bagel. During the day, you don't know why you feel so sluggish, but you did it to yourself. Your mind distracted your stomach from digesting the food and sending it to the various body streams to help you throughout the day. It stopped here, stopped there, because your mind was elsewhere. I was on my way to an executive office in Oklahoma once when friends asked me where I was going, and I said, "I'm going to Ulcer Gulch," because I knew that that's what I'd find there. If you're an executive, you go out to lunch with other executive people talking shop. You talk about whether you should merge with this and whether it would pay to do that. The stock is ever going to go up because it went down so many points and it had come up a little, but not enough to override 2 days slump, and you're kind of worried about it. You're supposed to be helping this body of yours by eating, but that the food will be transferred into energy will keep your body going, but much of it has been blocked because you're thinking about serious matters and turning your attention away from your food. You need to pay attention to your stomach, what you're putting into it, and how you're doing it, because your stomach is your biggest help. It's where the energy that sustains your life enters your body. You think you'll save a lot of time by working while you eat, but when you don't understand why you feel tired and have such bad indigestion, no wonder many executives have ulcers. You should also be thinking pleasant thoughts while you're eating, not reading about war or thinking about the last 2 days of arguments that you're still trying to resolve in your own mind, or someone who you're at odds with. Maybe you're eating alone, but you have a dialogue going on. If I ever face that person, it doesn't matter if you have the most correct food in the world. If your attitude isn't right when you eat it, it's just a waste. You'll have your stomach knotted up and you'll have pains and indigestion because you brought that negative energy into your body along with your food. Old ranchers and farmhands working in the fields knew the importance of paying attention to their food. They ate in silence, and after they finished eating, the foreman would lay out what was to be done that afternoon. Our Indian people didn't eat in total silence, but if we spoke, it was on a light note, something funny. There was a man who'd traveled a long way to join his friends for a meal. Instead of asking for the salt to be passed, he reached across the table to get it. Another Indian at the table said, "Pretty far, but you made it here." It had a double meaning, and others who knew what was implied started laughing. Yes, you can enjoy food like that on a light note. When our people were forced to live on reservations, fences kept them from their hunting grounds. They no longer had the buffalo, the staple of their diet, so they became dependent on commodities that were issued by the government. They also had no knowledge of the nutritional value of the processed foods they were given, so they ate what tasted good to them and maybe overate certain foods. Whatever the reason, our people were plagued with poor health and still are. Like most Indians, the Pima tribe eats poorly. A lot of greasy stuff like fry bread, which is good from time to time, but not as a regular diet yet. In spite of that diet, Pima never have heart trouble. So scientists studied them for a whole year and could find only one possible reason. They were always laughing and jolly when they ate. So it's safe to say that it's not necessarily what you put into your body, but the attitude with which you put it into your body that counts. Suppose you go on a diet which is mind over platter. You're thinking about all the cholesterol and fattening food, so you hear so much about, I can't eat this, I can't eat that. That's negative, 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 all down the line. Turn it around. I'm going to put into my body what's best for me. I'm going to choose foods that are good for my body. Focus on positive thoughts, and your state of wellness can be maintained, not only by what you eat, but how you're eating. Prepare your food and eat it with love. That's the way our traditional people did it. Whenever they cooked something, they put love into it. They didn't have much to offer, but when people came, it didn't take much to satisfy their hunger because there was a lot of love there. In our culture, whenever we are given food, whether someone buys us groceries or makes us breakfast or takes us out to dinner, we say that extends our life. And as we accept that food, we breathe a word of prayer so that the dividends of that gift might be multiplied into the life of the person who gave it. In our way, we are always grateful for food, whether there is abundance or just enough to go around. We are still grateful, and we always try to leave the table before we feel completely full. It increases your willpower, for one thing. Also, those organs within you need to break down the food and carry it through your whole system will not have enough room to work if you're stuffed full of food. Overeating puts a lot of extra stress on your organs, and they're trying to work. So leave the table just a little bit hungry without eating everything on your plate. Be good to your body. Leave some of your food if you can. We were also taught to always leave a little food on the plate as an offering. It's our way of saying, may this food find its way to someone who might be in need, someone we don't even know. We don't make a great dramatic affair out of it. It's not done to say, look what I'm doing. We do it because all people live together on the same planet, breathing the same atmosphere. We are all relatives. We leave an offering as an appreciation for what we were able to enjoy, and we want to share it with others who might not have as much. We want this food to find its way to where people of other lands, from the youngest to the oldest, may be provided enough to sustain their lives in good health. When I was a boy, one of my elders told me, notice the leaves on the tree. When it turns cold, the leaves are going to change colors and fall, but they're still part of that tree. When you live long enough in your maturity, your life is going to be meaningful, and others will notice you. Like the color changing in each leaf, they're going to see you for what you have done in life, and it will be beautiful to see. Eventually, you're going to fall, but in falling, you're going to make it possible for other life forms to come after you. When the new year comes, when everything becomes green again, part of that which fell to the ground will be alive. And so it is with life. It goes on and on. What we're actually doing is borrowing the sunlight, the wind, and the food which comes to us from deep underground. The roots reach up and feed us out here on the limb. So think of each day as a loan and learn to use it wisely.